Hi, welcome to lesson number 5 in the unit on the Dvaravati civilization. In this lesson, we're going to be covering trade and commerce. So, the Dvaravati people were involved in trade with both India and China, and they likely also received goods from Iran and Rome through trade with India. So, the Iranians and the Romans would have traded with India, and then the Indians would have traded with the Dvaravati people, so that there was sort of an international trade route happening. Now, the Dvaravati people actually minted their own coins. Okay, and you can see an example of one of their coins right here. This particular coin has a shell on it, so the shell was likely a symbol of the Dvaravati people that had some significance to them. Okay. Now, what type of goods did the Dvaravati people receive from India and from China? Well, one example of a good that was imported from India are glass beads. It seems that glass beads were very popular among the Dvaravati people, so they likely used them in jewelry and necklaces and bracelets, etc. There have been a lot of glass beads found throughout the region during archaeological digs. And they're the same sorts of glass beads that we know were produced in India. From China, the Dvaravati people received ceramics, and we know this because of shipwrecks that were dated back to that time. Okay, they also received pottery or jars made from clay that came from Mesopotamia or Iran. So they would have gotten these jars from trade with India. Okay. And there was even an ivory comb found, which is from the region that's today known as Pakistan. And interestingly, there was even a Roman lamp found at a Dvaravati site that was dated back to the Dvaravati period. So the Dvaravati people likely received this lamp, again, from trade with India, and the Indians probably received it from trade with the Romans. Here's a question for you. Did the merchants who traded with the Dvaravati people, that is the Chinese merchants and the Indian merchants, did they travel on land or by sea? What do you think? Okay. Well, we know from a previous lesson that Indian traders did trade with the people who lived there before the Dvaravati people, and they traveled on land for sure. Okay, they went through the Three Pagodas Pass, coming down through modern-day Burma or Myanmar and into modern-day Thailand to trade. However, while these land routes likely still stayed open during the Dvaravati period, geologists, people who study the earth, say that Nakhon Pathom may have actually been a port city from the 8th to the 11th century. Now, a port city means it's a city that had a port, of course, so that means it was near the ocean. But how is that possible? Today, Nakhon Pathom is quite far from the ocean. Well, the idea is that at the time, tides were much higher. Okay, so at the time, Nakhon Pathom was actually near the Gulf of Thailand, or nearer to the Gulf of Thailand than it is today. Alright, and why do archaeologists believe this? Well, 2 seals were found in Nakhon Pathom. One had an image of a sailing ship on it, and the other had the words, "Excellent Seaport," okay, in the Mon language, of course. And so here's an example of the seal with the sailing ship. And here, I believe this is the Mon language. It could be a different language, I'm not sure. But this, apparently, says "Excellent Seaport." Okay. So, both archaeologists and geologists think that Nakhon Pathom may have actually been a city where people traveled by boat to trade. Okay. And we have more evidence that the tides were much higher back then, or that the sea levels were much higher. Because, remember, I mentioned just a moment ago that Dvaravati people traded with China and they received ceramics. Well, this is a real image of an example of a ceramic from China. Okay, and this one was found at a shipwreck, but the shipwreck was actually found on land. All right, so about 8 kilometers from the Gulf of Thailand in Ratchaburi. So how could a ship have wrecked 8 kilometers away from water? Well, the theory is, again, at the time, that part of Ratchaburi would have actually been part of the Gulf of Thailand. It wouldn't have been land at all. It would have been the ocean. And the ship sank there, and it remained there until just a few years back when it was uncovered, and we found all these Chinese ceramics there. And of course, it was dated back to the Dvaravati time, so we know that China was trading with the Dvaravati people, and that they used boats to do so. Okay, so to answer the question that I asked earlier, did merchants travel on land or by sea? Well, it's very likely that they traveled both on land and by sea. You can see this map here of the Indian Ocean trade route, and you can see this route here goes to central Thailand. All right, indicating that the Chinese likely, although they might have docked in modern-day Vietnam, they also traveled into the Gulf of Thailand and then to what at the time was the Dvaravati civilization to trade with the Dvaravati people. All right, and that's it for this lesson, so thank you very much for listening.